Well, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back. Light Warriors Unleashed podcast, episode 84, I believe we're on. 84. Wow. Let's just breathe into this. I think we're on 84. Is it 84? I'm going to have to take a look because I don't even know what podcast episode we're on. Isn't that fucking hilarious? I think that I'm so fucking funny when it comes to this. Yeah, we're in 84. Okay, I thought so. However, as you're going to hear inside of this podcast episode, I just came off of a journey with Psilocybin yesterday, a plant medicine journey of healing. And I don't go into the work I actually did in this session because that's coming later. There's still some integration, some processing. I've got to find a voice around this to be able to hold it in the purity of its light. What I experienced, what I went through, what I found out about myself, what I'm moving through now in my own energetic field to hold this. But I want to talk about healing, and I want to talk about what's happening in the collective and what are we being called forward to right now, because this is an important conversation for all of us. If you are here right now and you've hit play on this, or play on this is for you. There is something in this episode that is for you. And whether you listen to it the day after I launch it or you listen to it a year from now, it doesn't matter, because this is exactly what you need to hear right now for your movement of light into the world. And as you will find, I am very grounded in this energy right now. I am still moving through some of the stuff that happened. I had a nap this afternoon. I'm going to bed early. I didn't do any work today. Like I made a couple of things, but they were like super, super easy. And yeah, I'm yawning because I'm tired. My body went to war. My mind, my soul, my spirit. I was at war yesterday within myself, within past lives, within the timeline coming. I was at war. And we are being called forward today, right now, in this moment, to start to move through our own healing journey, and not in a way of just healing the body, but in a way of healing our energy. And you'll understand a bit more as you listen to this, what that means. And even more so when I get the solo episode out about the actual root of the journey I went through. But this is it, guys. You know, we get moments of time in the collective avenues and spaces, and this is it right here. This is the opening of the portal way for you to step in. And it's happening in real time in this moment of time for you. So with no further ado, episode 84, the Light Warriors Unleashed podcast. Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be a mixed episode. And the reason why I say that is there's so many concepts floating through my field at this very moment of time, and I desire to speak into all of the avenues that are showing up. And as I sat with this conversation yesterday and today, I wasn't sure, up until this afternoon what I was going to speak about. Just so you guys know, I usually record my solo episodes on Mondays and they launch on Tuesdays. So I'm in the purity of some real potent energy that's moving through the collective. And no matter where you start to listen to this podcast, if you're listening to it a month down the road or like 5 months or a year down the road, it'll be relevant to you. And I'm going to title this episode, The Healing Journey of the Healer. And why I'm bringing this forward right now is yesterday I went into a psilocybin journey. And I've done psilocybin recreationally before in my teen years and early 20 years, for getting high and getting into a trip and like going to explore. And I've never done it in a session to actually go in and heal. So I had no reference point to what this was actually going to mean. And I'm still processing a lot of it. It was a very, very potent journey for me, very liberating. Like, it explains my whole entire life of why certain actions dropped in, why certain things aligned. And I'm going to explain this in another episode solely on its own, where I can actually hold the energy of the processed information that came through. I'm still integrating through this process, but the energy of healing the healers came up dominantly today, and it came up through a conversation I did on one of my reels. And I just really am choosing to step in today to have this discussion with you about healing. And I am, just so you guys know, those of you guys listening to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on, I literally just got out of the shower. I am just sitting here with a ring light in my living room, recording this podcast at 7 o'clock at night because I'm holding the integrity of the commitment I made. And I knew that this was important for me to show up in exactly this way to discuss healing. Because the journey of healing, not even for us healers, which I would have never called myself a healer up until yesterday, when that dropped into my field of awareness. But the journey of healing for all of us is different. You know, we have different landscapes of healing. We have different ways that we heal. It means something for each of us in different ways. And this is actually a potent concept for you to feel into your field, because I think sometimes, especially with the taboo of this conversation right now, you know, like manifestation used to be a big taboo. Embodiment is also a big taboo right now, but healing is a taboo word that so many people are using and not understanding the purity of what this is. And I can actually say to you that I had an understanding on Saturday to what healing was, and I have a completely different understanding on Monday today to what healing is. And I went through a very deeply rooted experience that was, and I'm going to say the word, ready to come forth in me. And I knew I was being called there for a reason. And I knew it had to happen yesterday instead of in January when it was first planned, and it all got moved and everything. The timeline was so perfectly aligned. Like, I logically couldn't have made it up. Like, I couldn't have aligned all the pieces to this experience yesterday that I went through. And I look at the dimensions of our life. You know, our physical form is usually the key that we as humans see to healing. Our physical body has pain and we want to go in and heal the physical body. You know, our joints are not moving the way they want to, and we go in to heal the joints. We have a cough showing up in our body. We want to go and heal the cough. And the physical form is warranted for these messages that are coming through in the physicality within ourselves, within the energy that we hold within our bodies. And when we have stagnant energy, or energy that hasn't been moved through or addressed, meaning in either the emotional side, in the physical form, in the spiritual energetic form, then it creates a blockage in the body, which most of us as humans see healing in the physical form, which is a dimension to healing. However, I want to really speak to the healing inside of our soul's alignment today, and the healing inside of our connection to energy. And the physical body is one of those ones that we get the cues all the time, but we sometimes don't even realize the blockage in the energy that we're holding that is literally creating patterns or creating certain circumstances for us to take action into and keeping us cycling. Now, I've done a lot of work with a lot of people in past life regressions. I call them explorations because I don't believe we actually regress, because past lives are happening at the same time as this life. So there is no regression. And I think that that word is an old school energy word, brought forth in the third dimensional energy instead of actually in the purity of the transition that it actually brings us through in multidimensional avenues. But that's just me, and you can take that with a grain of salt if that doesn't feel aligned for you. But I've done multiple past life explorations. I've done multiple ancestral healings. I've brought in people down into womb healing, in the womb and in utero. I think that's what it's called, in utero. And for those of you guys who are going to start to get to know me, my pronunciation these days so sucks. I'm like, I'm trying to own it. And I'm just like, this is just me. Like, here I am in the purity of who I am. And this is a landscape I'm working to be better at. Okay. So feel free to like send me a DM and say to me, Colleen, you pronounced that wrong. Totally will honor you. Okay. I've done a lot of work in utero. I've done a lot of work with people in the pain in their body in this life to be able to move it through. And there was never really a point in my journey that I ever said I was a healer. I can activate chi energy in my hands to heal through my hands as well, very potently. And this was something I've known for a long time, but I haven't used it in practice. Like, I would use it with lovers, like in the bedroom and like in massages, and actually helping them move energy through intentionally with my hands, because I have that availability to do that. And it almost creates this electricity within our connection together, which I think is actually really rad and totally kind of cool. But I never would have told you that I was a healer. In this experience that I went through, like literally 24 hours ago, we were coming out of it. Like 24 hours ago, I was eating nachos with my girlfriend at the local bar because we needed to ground from this experience, and laughing our heads off because if any of you ever done psilocybin, the mushroom laughter coming out of it is actually fucking hilarious. And if you've ever done it recreationally, it's kind of like after the healing process goes through, you get the laughter part and the trip that you actually got high on when you were doing it recreationally, right? And it came through about how us as humans are all healing and healers within our own selves. And although I do healing work with people, I would have never actually said that I was a healer. And when I dropped into this journey yesterday and I really started to disassemble the stuff I needed to move through and really see the mission that I'm holding as a spiritual warrior, as this embodied feminine energy, it came into the space of my essence and who I am is that of opening up a doorway for people to step in to do their work of healing in their own spaces, in their own timelines, in their own perspectives. And there's some days that I really desire that people make a choice and choose to heal today because I can see it in them, what they need to move and move through, but I'm not in charge of their timeline. I'm in charge of my timeline and my light and moving through and shining brighter and having the conversations that some people would never have with you because they're scared to speak truth into the world. And I blatantly and obviously, and like I can't even deny that my mission is to speak into these situations that are happening in the world, the silencing of our voices and the dismantling of conformity and all the things that I stand for, not knowing at the time, like a week ago, I knew, but I didn't know. And now I know, and I'm like, holy fuck, right? And stepping into that space. So I want to bring forth this conversation today for you to consider in your world is like, some of us are playing still in our mediocrity and playing and waiting in our pool and thinking that life is okay being mediocre, and that it's okay for us to just be safe over here. When if you're in my life in whatever way, meaning you're listening to this podcast or you do work with me one-to-one or you're following me on Instagram, something is calling you forward to step in to your light in more potency. And some of you are being called forward to make changes and shifts in your world and to go deeply into yourself to discover what's there. So let me just tell you guys a little bit about this. What drew me to psilocybin was I've been feeling this energy. It's almost like I kept getting capped. You know, for years I capped my own self. I like was choosing not to step in. I was self-sabotaging my missions. I was destroying my fucking life. I was purposely doing things. And I will honestly step into this space to tell you that's what I was doing. And it came a time a couple of years ago where I made a decision to actually release this dynamic of who I was and start to really play in the possibility of opening and expanding. And some of you have heard this story before about me in business and about how I shifted the model and started to really own the truth of what I was and who I was, and things started to change and move. And I have a great life. I really do. I live in a beautiful country. I can walk outside my door and touch nature, and I can be at the beach in 5 minutes, and I do yoga in the jungle. And I just literally drove an hour and a half up the mountain and actually slept in a hoodie last night on the floor in the middle of this healing like center, we're going to call it. It was just me and another girlfriend that went, and we had a facilitator, or I don't even know what we want to call her, like a guide who just held space for us in this experience. And we went down yesterday morning when we got there, and swam naked in the river together, just me and my girlfriend, who's a friend of mine, by the way. We're not in a love relationship, just stating that out loud. We just got naked and got into the river and allowed the cold fucking ass river to serve our soul and to clear us. We did it again this morning with just the intention of releasing anything else that needed to go from the ceremony that we had just been in. the land that we got to be a part of over this experience was so connecting and so like rich in its support of the energy, like the trees planted and the San Pedro that was all over the property. It was like, and if some of you don't know, San Pedro's a cactus that can be used medicinally as well for deeper rooted connection within yourself. It was just the holistic thing was a very beautiful, beautiful experience. And I say beautiful meaning the environment we were in. I'm not talking about the war I went through in the experience, which will be a conversation I'm going to have solely on one podcast because there's a lot I need to reveal into the world that I didn't know had happened to me in this life. And it needs its own voice. It needs its own voice. But I kept cycling, and over the last few years, cycling through some things. And with all the shitstorms that I've been through this past year of 2023, I was just like, there's something else. There's something else I'm not seeing. There's something else that's here. I don't know what it is. Consciously, I can't tap into it. I couldn't find it on my own. And I knew that I needed to do this. I knew that Mama Psilocybin or Mama Mushroom was coming forward as a mentor of mine to hold me in this experience. And I just kept getting the ping. And I just kept getting the ping. It was time to move through this. It was time to go in. And the intention I set before this experience, and some of you don't have any experience with plant medicine, there's an intention that you move through. And ayahuasca is not my medicine. Mushrooms are, and psilocybin is. And I lovingly stepped into the space with the intention of, I want to discover what this means. Why am I cycling in this? What does this mean? And, you know, when I talk about, and you guys are going to hear a few podcasts ago, we talked about feminine energy. It's coming up a lot. One of the interviews I do coming up in the next couple of weeks, one of the guests, she beautifully defined the dark feminine energy and the embodiment of the womb and the creativity of the womb. And I've known this for a long time. And over the last few weeks, I've had super tight hips and in my lower back, and working with my energy workers and working with all the beautiful expanded health practitioners in my world, it didn't seem to want to unlock. And I couldn't figure it out. Like I was in the space of going, something is here and I don't know what. And I know my next level of expansion in the world and impact in the world and light in the world was coming through the portal of my womb and the creativity and the divine feminine energy and this beautiful embodiment, because I knew the strategy of working hard in the masculine was not going to get me to where I desire and see myself to be and the impact that's coming through my field. And I knew this, and I know this. And I went, I just can't seem to connect the dots. Something is here in the space of time. So a few months ago, when one of my friends mentioned psilocybin, and then I went to my energy worker and she said, you need to go see Ursula up in, Chiripo. And she does, I've heard she's the best. And she's actually from Peru and she's lived in Costa Rica for like 15 years. And she's like, she is this. And her medicine that she brings to the world is this experience with psilocybin. And I just knew that there was something. I had no reference point to what this healing in my life meant. I could heal my body. I could heal my eyes. And some of you have heard me speak to this. It's like, I'm healing my eyesight here. I can heal the dynamics of I understood the healing in the body, but I couldn't pulse point the healing in my energetic field and dropping into a space that I didn't even know existed in my life until I said yes to an intuitive hit that said psilocybin has the answers. And I state this for you guys here today, just in the purity of this light, is that every single day, our intuition, our soul, our divine connection is speaking to us, and is speaking to us in a way of like potent remembrance. And if you are living in any sort of shame, fear, anger, frustration, anxiety, depression, there's a disconnect happening in your life right now. And there is something that can move this energy through to help assist you to get to the next phase. And sometimes that's you dealing with your shit, meaning you making a decision in your own courage to actually step in and do the work. That might be working with a mentor like me to help bring it forth through past life healing or inner child work or shadow work. I do a lot of those packages inside of the space for healing. And it might be working with a plant medicine or going into ceremony or dropping into a retreat to hold a container for you to be. After the ceremony ended, I just kept seeing these visions of rest and these visions of the times in my lifetimes, like all of the past lives, not all of them, but in all these different dimensional past lives that I moved energy through yesterday in this experience, which is tied to my major healing, which I'll explain it in another podcast episode over the next few weeks. I promise it'll come through. But I just kept seeing the time of rest was yesterday for me. And I just kept seeing these times in my lifetimes where I gotten beat up, I was in wars, I was torn apart, I was dismantled, I was, like so many things. And I needed the space to recluse, to take a moment to breathe. And I kept seeing it yesterday through my journey. It was like I was in this Spanish house and I just was like way far up in the mountains, and I was honoring nature and I was grounded within myself, and I had like a cup of coffee and I sat in a doorway and I watched the birds and I watched the sun move through the sky and I watched the sunset and I listened to the river and I heard the wind through the trees and I felt the breeze on my face. And it was those moments of relaxation and rest that rejuvenated me to be able to step in fully into the mission at hand. Because I have lived on this earth in some potent lifetimes of war for the collective, of war for the voice of femininity, of war for our truth, of literally battling against those that were trying to diminish the light. And this war inside of my energy is coming again. And I know it and I feel it. And I got all of the answers yesterday to what this is for me in life. And I recognize the battle that we're in as humans. And I wanted to bring up the energy of healing the healer is because all of us are being called to heal the parts of us that are necessary for us to be able to hold our light and potency over the next few years as we move through this energy. And then embedding that light into our kids and into the impact of the people we're meant to serve and helping them illuminate so that we can hold the voice of truth. And the journey isn't going to be easy. The healing journey isn't easy. Like literally I said, coming out of this millions of times yesterday that I was at war, and I thought I'd come out and I was like, God, fuck, I finished that war. And it was like, are we done? No, we're not done. We go back in. And we did for 5 hours, 5 hours of battling, 5 hours of moving within truth within myself to hold this energy. And some of you are in your battles and you're right there up against it right now. And you're holding it in your heart and you're making decisions, but you're still in fear. And I understand. I wrote notes actually. Well, you can't really read them. But after I had taken the psilocybin yesterday, all I kept hearing was the journey home. So I wrote that down in normal writing. And then later on, somewhere along the way, I picked up my journal and I tried to write, just like I thought I could actually talk out loud. Couldn't do that either. But I tried to write. And it's all scribbles, but it says one of the words I could see was I understand. I understand what you're feeling. I have never been where you've been, but you also don't know where I've been, because I didn't know until yesterday where I'd actually been. And all I have to say to you is I see you. I see you. I see you in your journey. I see you working your journey. I see you battling in your mind, in your heart. I see you. This is the beginning. When we move through this, we then get the next key and the next level of armor to hold the next phase of our world. And some of us are in positions of leading leaders and tribes and movements. And some of you are a part of those, but your light is necessary in all of its potency to be able to move through. So the conversation today that I just wanted to have with you was about where in your life are you being called to heal? And you know, because you've been hearing it. Healing in your relationships, healing in your way you talk to yourself, healing in the way you eat, healing in the way that you lead in the world, healing in the way that you show up in your life, in your business, for yourself. You know, I laughed so much through this journey after I did the dark shit about the things that I thought were important, you know? And I just kept saying all the stuff out loud. And my girlfriend that was there, she was just fucking laughing. She's like, "You're saying everything that I'm thinking." And and I look out at this beautiful view. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you would have saw it, because the morning I took a clip. We slept on the floor on mats. We didn't have to. There was a bed, like a king size bed we could have slept on, but we both felt called to stay on the main floor where we did most of our work. And it just felt right. We had the door open ajar, so we got the breeze coming in. We're up in the mountains, right? It's a completely different vibe than where we live. It's like fucking hot as fuck where I live, and the mountains have the cool breeze. Like, I was like, let's start a fire, you know, like that would have been juicy for me. And I just remember and know that this energy is moving through all of us right now for our escalation. I'm not telling you need to go do plant medicine. And I'm especially not telling you to just go fucking find a place to do plant medicine. You are called to it in a way of someone that needs to support you. And if you are desiring an experience like this, it has to be in connection, right? Whereas I've done a lot of work. I've worked with a lot of mentors throughout the years. I've done a lot of work within myself, a lot of work within my energies, a lot of work with other people working within my energies. And this was the key for me to open up the next phase and level. And I realized some of the things in my life, like, are not things in my life, you know, like, and I laughed about it going, that was important yesterday, you know, like, and I'm like, seriously. And just understanding this. And I have no judgment on anyone's journey whatsoever. I just think it's hilarious that some of the things that we think are important are totally not. You know, what was important for me yesterday was looking out and seeing all the trees and hearing the birds. And supposedly, in one of the biggest moments of my darkness, when I was breathing so heavy, a hummingbird came into the house where I was, right in front of me. And I didn't see it, obviously. I was in session, we'll call it. But our facilitator, Ursula, said it was the most beautiful thing to watch. This hummingbird, big hummingbird. Like, we have massive hummingbirds here, not like in Canada where they're small, they're big, came in and was fluttering around. And at one moment in time, like, I had cleared all the energy of the house and put dragons on the roof, because I knew I was going into darkness. I knew we were working within some shit storms. I knew both of us were. And I brought in the cavalry. I put up the portals around. I brought in the wizard realm. They were holding space with sacred geo and alchemy to make sure we were protected, that nothing could come into us during this experience, because we were so open to this work that we were doing. And this beautiful hummingbird came in, which just like locked in the energy of this whole entire thing. So I want to finish off today by saying to you about trust. We've got a lot of shit we're working through. I work through lifetimes of things. Lifetimes of hurt and of pain and of torture. All of it in the feminine energy that has completely changed the way I can expand energetically and reach now. And I know that because I needed to honor the parts of me that needed to be healed through this experience. So where in your life do you need to say yes to this, to healing, to have courage? Where in your life are you being called forward now to really look at yourself? It's not okay any longer that we sit in our mediocrity. It's not, you're not meant for that. You're not meant for that at all. This is the place. This is the time. And I know you're scared as fuck. I understand and I see you. But these are the moments now that we're being called forward into our light, to go to war within ourselves, to move it through, to understand more, to remember who the fuck we are. And this is it right here. So I hope if you are still listening to this right now in this moment of time, you heard what you needed to hear, because something showed up. Someone showed up. something called you to this episode today. Trust in that, because there's something here for you. And I'm complete. I'll see you guys all again soon.